This was the family. That's Bonnie with her brothers, including Governor Orval Faubus. This picture from a happier time before this happened. The integration crisis in 1957 made national and international headlines, and it tore the Faubus family apart. Bonnie talked to a West Coast reporter and told the world of her disappointment in her brother. She said she had been raised in a household of socialism and racial equality, and that Orval had compromised those beliefs by standing in the way of the Little Rock Nine. Throughout her 93 years, she remained true to the family belief. In 2009, she sent a letter to Roy Reed, who wrote the biography of Orval Faubus, in which she said, "From what I hear from others, he was a pretty good governor, but what he did in 1957 broke my heart. He left a scar on the state of Arkansas that will remain forever." Years out of office, Orval would confess to his biographer he'd been stung by his family's criticism, but he said he wouldn't change a thing. He had to hold on to the governor's chair to exact real change in the state of Arkansas. But you can't help but wonder, if Orval had been as true to his family's core beliefs as his sister Bonnie, would his statue be here with these 9? In 1932, elevators were not automatic. They had operators. And in that year, it was the lunch hour, June 17th. A man named Ira Gurley, who many expected to run for Secretary of State, watched the elevator reach him on the 3rd floor. State Capitol historian Dr. David Ware tells us what happened next.
Then he steps on, but the elevator operator apparently hadn't noticed that Gurley was stepping on, so he had started shutting the gate and the elevator was moving up. And so Gurley was crushed between the floor of the elevator and the top of the door frame.
Ira Gurley from Carroll County would leave behind a wife and 2 daughters. So how is this tragic accident at the state capitol related to Cosmopolitan magazine? Turns out that Ira Gurley was the father of Helen Gurley Brown, a woman who in 1962 wrote the book Sex and the Single Girl, and then in 1965 became the managing editor of Cosmopolitan magazine. Helen Gurley Brown would change the culture of women in America, saying they could have it all. A woman who was only 10 years old when her father died at the state capitol would go on to make a lasting impression on the culture of America. His name is John Yancey. He served in World War II and then again in the Korean War.
John probably was the bravest, most heroic Marine that there was.
At the MacArthur Museum of Arkansas Military History, I met with Dub Allen, who joined the Marines as a teenager because he had met and been inspired by John Yancey.
He loved being a Marine.
Yancey would earn a Navy Cross in World War II, charging a Japanese gun placement on Guadalcanal. As a Marine reservist in the Korean War, he would again earn a Navy Cross by defending a crucial outpost against insurmountable odds. After the wars, Yancey would still carry the aura of a natural-born military hero.
And speak in that deep voice and the way he held his head, he commanded attention whether he wanted it or not.
In 1961, John Yancey was immortalized by an artist named Sasha Schnitzman. So inspirational was the image of John Yancey that when European sculptor Sasha Schnitzman was commissioned to come up with a bust of Count Pulaski, the artist didn't like the way the real Count Pulaski looked. It wasn't exactly the dashing Revolutionary War hero, but he did like the looks of John Yancey. So when he came out with the complete work of art, what you see really when you're looking at Count Pulaski is John Yancey. If you're out and about this Memorial Day weekend as a way to celebrate, you see this bust, take a look at it. Simply say, "Thank you, John." June 6, 1944, 160,000 Allied soldiers involved in the D-Day landings in France. An armada of 2,727 ships assembled from 12 nations, and among those was the battleship, the USS Arkansas. It had been commissioned in 1912 and was slated to be scrapped until D-Day came along and the ship's big guns were needed. The mission was to open fire on the German-controlled beaches, codenamed Omaha. It would be joined by the oldest ship in the fleet, another old battleship, the USS Texas. That's right, D-Day on Omaha Beach began with the Arkansas and Texas, side by side, blasting away in one last major assault. No rivalry, just 2 old battleships giving it everything they had.
I think it's neat that the two ships very close together, both working to accomplish the same mission.
Michael Hopper is curator of the Arkansas Inland Museum in North Little Rock, where you can still find a few remnants of the battleship Arkansas. A few pictures, trophies from athletic teams from the ship, some equipment.
Other than finding the odd thing here or there in an antique store or come up in auction from someone's private collection, there's not a lot of things out there.
But there is one artifact that the entire state is familiar with. You see, in 1912, there was no flag to fly on the new battleship. So, the Daughters of the American Revolution in Arkansas staged a contest. Who could come up with a winning design for an Arkansas flag? Willie Cavanaugh Hocker of Wabaseka had the winning design, and this is what she came up with. A flag that was first seen in 1912 on the USS Arkansas. Here it is, the old State House. Well, back then, 1836, it was the not yet completed State House. We had the audacity in this state to begin building a state capitol before we joined the Union.
As Arkansas was about to become a state, the old State House had already been under construction for about 3 years.
As Old State House Development Director Brooke Malloy points out, Arkansas was poor, and anyone who's ever worked with a contractor knows when you run out of money, you cut corners. We made our own bricks. Some you can still see today in the museum. You know those gleaming columns out front? Actually bricks coated with plaster. It was called frontier engineering. And there were problems along the way.
There was a hole in the central temple, so rain fell to the floor until 1842.
1842, when it was completed. All three buildings took 9 years to build, and when they were all done, what most Arkansans don't know, the front and the back looked exactly alike. They were identical, and there was a reason.
If you were coming up the Arkansas River on a steamboat, you would see the same gorgeous facade with the columns that you see when you're on Markham Street today.
Yep, we're 177 years old, and thanks to some nifty preservation and a few makeovers and some plaster surgery, we hardly look a day over 140. Happy birthday, Arkansas.